Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Ruffman. I am your host, John Ruffman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. Today is Memorial Day. It is a day when we all pause and remember those who gave their lives that we might be free. When I was a kid, I would go to the Presidio of San Francisco and see all of the honors, all of the present and future soldiers who really were there to remind us of their duty and their honor and their country. And of course, when you drive through the Presidio, as I do with some frequency, you will see the graves of countless veterans. They were veterans, men and women who gave their lives in service of our country, in war and in peace. So I pause today to remember them. Now I want to talk about the fact that Donald Trump is speaking out about how our armed forces is growing. It is more powerful, more able than any other armed forces in American or world history. Do you know that the military spent nearly $6 billion, that's with a B, billion, to recruit and keep troops? That's right. You have to spend money in order to ensure the security of our country. You also have to spend money to ensure our country is secure in so many other ways. Look at the cuts that have taken place, and look at the disasters, natural disasters, which now seem to be occurring with greater frequency. Will we have the resources to protect those who are now in trouble because of storms and hurricanes? Well, these are all questions that need to be answered. And of course, we have the domestic concerns that overwhelm us. Thank God the courts have stepped in, and Harvard University is fighting back. And yes, perhaps now what Donald Trump has done in terms of foreign students will go all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will reject what Donald Trump has done. Freedom is not just having an army. Freedom is having all the elements that we treasure in this country. The true meaning of freedom, Adlai Stevenson once said, was not in the wealth or might or power of the United States. It was in the ideas the United States spreads. The idea of freedom and justice and something that makes America great, a balance of power in which no one person can dominate. Let me be very clear on this point. Donald Trump this weekend finally said what everyone thinks about Vladimir Putin. He said he doesn't know what's gotten into Putin because of the attacks in Ukraine. Well, I can tell Donald Trump, and we told Donald Trump, and America understands, and I think the world understands. Vladimir Putin is a dictator who wants to reestablish the Russian Empire, or the Soviet Empire, if you will. And Donald Trump thought he could sweet talk Vladimir Putin. Now, there's no sweet talking Putin. And yes, the attacks on Kiev and on Ukraine continue, despite the fact that Donald Trump is calling for some sort of ceasefire. Let's be clear. What is happening in the White House today, if those who were killed and those who we celebrate today defending America could rise from their graves and see what abuses of power are taking place in our own great country, if they could see what this administration is doing on virtually every level, they would understand that although they fought to defend democracy, we in our own country must fight now to defend democracy against an authoritarian. And I am, of course, speaking of Donald Trump, who is abusing the Constitution in so many ways, who is hurting America in the world, who is claiming credit for things that, frankly, he had nothing to do with. A man whose ability to hurt our country grows every day. I was absolutely mortified when Speaker Johnson, appearing on television this weekend, said he knew nothing about the dinner that Donald Trump attended for those investing in his financial enterprises, including the whole thing about Bitcoin. I want you all to understand, and I say this without hesitation or reservation, that for Speaker Johnson to say he just didn't know, he was too busy doing other things, passing a bill in Congress, to understand the corruption that Donald Trump represented in that dinner. There is something seriously wrong. And if I'd been interviewing Speaker Johnson, I would have said, if a Democrat had done this, what would you be saying? And of course, you and I know Speaker Johnson would have been outraged. The fact that the Speaker of the House of Representatives could, on this Memorial Day weekend, give license to a president who is benefiting from his own financial dealings is, to me, appalling. No, it's Memorial Day, all right. We have a lot to be grateful for. But as surely as those who gave their lives in defense of our country fought to preserve our freedom, we must do the same thing. There can be no ambiguity about this. The corruption of Donald Trump, the misuse of power by Donald Trump, the attempt to suppress basic liberties guaranteed by the Constitution by Donald Trump, all need to be resisted with as much passion and power as those who gave their lives that we might be free should be celebrated on this Memorial Day. You know, it's a curious thing. America's military might is not the element that we should be celebrating today. It is America's freedom, and those who gave their lives to defend that freedom. That's the real story on this Memorial Day. So when, later today, I go through the Presidio and I watch and see the tombstones of those who gave their lives that we might be free, I will reflect on the fact that freedom, my friends, freedom is the story of our age. And we must do everything we can to ensure that freedom survives in our own country. Let us be clear. My discussion today about Memorial Day in the context of what Donald Trump is doing should remind us that the Trump policies are the antithesis of freedom, the antithesis of what we have fought for and died for during the history of this great nation. And when, on June 14th, there is a military parade in Washington, D.C. to celebrate our military might, I would say what we really should be celebrating is our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, those liberties that are so essential to all of us. That's my reflection with you on Memorial Day, highlighting some of the things we have witnessed, but more important than that, determined more than ever that the honor of those who died that we might be free should be defended today. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. That is, of course, our goal. You can interact with me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and of course by emailing me directly. And to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of this podcast, thanks, Gogo. I appreciate everything you do every day. This is John Rothman, and you are listening on this Memorial Day to Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you tomorrow.